My name is Clara, and I am a 5-year-old librarian. I live in a quiet town with my husband, Daniel. We have a beautiful house with a green garden. Our neighbors often say we are the perfect couple. They see our smiles and our nice home, and they think our life is a happy story. From the outside, my life with my husband Daniel looked perfect. I tried to believe it too. But deep inside, I felt like a stranger in my own life. There is a room in our house that I never open. It holds a secret, a part of me that I locked away. But they didn't know about the unfinished painting and the promise I buried with it, a promise that changed everything. 10 years ago, our life was very different. I remember our small apartment on the 3rd floor. It wasn't big, but it felt like home. It always smelled of fresh paint and warm bread. We didn't have much money, but we had big dreams. I thought our future was full of color and hope. We used to sit on the floor and talk for hours. He talked about his restaurant, a place with warm lights and happy families. I showed him my paintings, canvases filled with sunlight and flowers. He looked at my art with so much love in his eyes. He said my paintings made him feel calm. One evening, he held my hand. His eyes were bright with hope. "Clara," he said softly, "help me build my restaurant first, just for a few years. When it is successful, I will help you open your own art gallery. I promise you." I believed him with all my heart. So, I packed away my paints. I put my dream in a box. I worked 2 jobs. I saved every dollar to help him. I thought I was building our future together. Now, we live in a big, beautiful house. His restaurant is famous in our town. Our life looks perfect. But our house is always quiet. The walls are empty and white. There are no paintings here. My paintbrushes are dry. My canvases are still clean. They are locked away in that small room with my old dream and his forgotten promise. I knew something important was lost, but for a long time, I was too scared to look for it. The years passed by in a quiet rhythm. I worked at the library. Daniel worked at his restaurant. Our life was comfortable, but my heart felt heavy. The colors of my world had faded to gray. I knew I was not happy, but I didn't know how to change it. One afternoon, I was walking home from work. I passed a small art shop. In the window, there was a beautiful set of oil paints. The colors were so bright, they looked like little pieces of a rainbow. For a moment, a spark of joy returned to my heart. I remembered the feeling of a paintbrush in my hand. That evening, I decided to be brave. I told Daniel about the paints. I tried to sound casual. "Daniel," I said during dinner, "I saw some paints I liked today. They weren't too expensive." He didn't look up from his phone. "Clara, we need to save money," he said. "The restaurant needs new chairs." He didn't ask how much they cost. He just said no. I felt a familiar coldness inside me. I didn't argue. I just nodded and quietly cleared the table. My small spark of hope was gone again. A few days later, Daniel came home with a small gift. It was a beautiful book about famous artists. It was a book I had wanted for a long time. "I saw this and thought of you," he said with a smile. For a moment, I thought he still remembered the old me. A tiny bit of warmth returned to my heart. I told myself maybe he was just stressed from work. I believed this was just a small problem. He still cares, I whispered to myself. The next week, my library announced an art contest for the community. The theme was Our Town. My heart beat a little faster. It was a small thing. It was not a big gallery, but it felt like a door was opening for me. Maybe I could paint again. That night, I was so excited. I couldn't wait to tell Daniel. I found him in the living room, watching TV. "Daniel, the library is having an art contest. I think I want to join," I said, my voice full of hope. He turned to look at me. He wasn't angry. He was just amused. A small smile played on his lips. That's nice, honey, he said slowly. But aren't you a little old for children's contests? His words hit me like a stone. I felt all the air leave my body. A children's contest. That's what he thought of my dream. I felt so small, so foolish. I couldn't speak. I just turned and walked away. After that, I stayed quiet. I didn't mention the contest again. I went to work at the library every day. I arranged books on the shelves. I liked the silence in the library. It was a calm silence. The silence in our home was different. It felt heavier every day. I said nothing. Daniel said nothing. We were like two strangers living in the same house. I started to accept my life. I thought this was my future. Quiet, safe, and empty. I thought I knew how my story would end. But I didn't know something from the past was waiting for me. I was wrong. Completely wrong. That was only the beginning. Then, one Saturday, everything changed. The sky was gray, and a soft rain was falling outside. I decided to clean the dusty storage room at the back of our house. It was a small room, filled with old things we never used anymore. I thought it would be a simple, quiet task. In a dark corner, under an old, forgotten blanket, I found a small wooden box. I didn't remember seeing it before. My fingers traced the dusty lid. It felt heavy with secrets. I opened it slowly. Inside were old photos from our first years together. I saw our young, smiling faces, and for a moment, my heart ached. Under the photos, there was a stack of letters. They were tied together with a faded blue ribbon. I knew the handwriting immediately. They were from Daniel. I picked one up. The paper was soft and yellow with age. I started to read his words, written so long ago. As I read, my hand started to shake. My heart beat fast. So fast I thought it would break. I couldn't breathe. I had to sit down on the cold, dusty floor. The words on the page were a ghost from a life I had almost forgotten. The letter said, "My dearest Clara, your art is our future. The colors you paint are the colors of my world. One day, your paintings will hang in our beautiful home. My restaurant is just the first step. Your dream is the real goal. I promise." Tears ran down my face. I read the words again and again. A man wrote this. A man who loved my dream. A man I used to know. I whispered to the empty room. Where was that man now? I held the letter in my hand for the rest of the day. It felt both warm and heavy, a piece of a past I could no longer ignore. I knew I couldn't go back to the quiet sadness. The silence had been broken. That night, I waited for him. I didn't cook dinner. I just sat in the living room in the dark, the letter on the small table in front of me. My heart was a storm inside me. I felt a strange mix of fear and strength. I thought about all the years I had been quiet. If only I had spoken up sooner. If only I hadn't been so afraid to be a burden. When Daniel came home, he turned on the light and saw me. He looked surprised. "Clara, are you okay? Why is it so dark?" I didn't say hello. I didn't stand up. I just looked at him. Then I pointed to the letter on the table. He walked over and picked it up. I watched his eyes move across the page. Then, I asked one quiet question. My voice was steady. It was stronger than I expected. "Daniel," I said, "what happened to the man who wrote this?" He looked up from the letter. His face was pale. He opened his mouth to speak, but no words came out. He looked at the letter again, then back at me. I could see the confusion in his eyes, the shock. I didn't cry. I didn't shout. I just stood there, watching his face change as he read his own words. I watched 10 years of silence fall away. A different kind of breakdown happened. Not mine, but his. It was a silent breakdown of a long-forgotten promise. I just stood there, breathing. The storm inside me slowly calmed down. For the first time in a long time, I felt a strange kind of peace. I had spoken the truth. Daniel didn't get angry. He didn't make excuses. He just stared at the letter. Then he looked at me, and for the first time in years, I felt like he was really seeing me. Not just the librarian, not just his wife, but the Clara he had forgotten. His hands trembled as he realized what he had done. I watched him as he slowly looked around our big, perfect house. He looked at the expensive furniture, the clean carpets, and then his eyes rested on the empty, white walls. The walls that had no paintings, the walls that held no color. A long, heavy silence filled the room. It was a different silence than before. It was not empty. It was full of regret. Finally, he looked back at me. His eyes were wet with tears. He whispered, his voice broken and small. I forgot, he said. I got so busy with the restaurant, with success. I forgot. He took a step closer, his face full of pain. I'm so sorry, Clara. I forgot you. I didn't know what to say. I just looked at him, the man I loved, who had become a stranger. I saw the deep sadness in his eyes. We didn't talk anymore that night. I slept in the guest room. I needed space. I needed to think. The next morning, Daniel was not in the house. His car was gone. I thought maybe he had left. I felt a strange mix of sadness and relief. I spent the day walking around the quiet house, touching the empty walls. He came back in the afternoon. He didn't come back with flowers or chocolates. He came back with an armful of supplies. He was carrying a brand new wooden easel, a large box of expensive oil paints, and a stack of clean, white canvases. He didn't just say sorry with words. His actions spoke louder than any promise. He walked over to me, his eyes full of a humility I had not seen in years. He fell to his knees in front of me, holding out a new paintbrush like a peace offering. I am sorry, he said again, his voice breaking. I know words are not enough. I don't know if you can forgive me. I don't know if I deserve it. But please, please paint again. I looked at the paintbrush in his hand. Tears filled my eyes. But this time, they were not tears of sadness. I slowly took the brush from him. It felt right in my hand, like a long-lost friend. Forgiveness is not a single moment. It is a slow and quiet journey. I didn't know if we could fix everything, but I knew this was a new beginning. Months passed. The house was no longer silent. It was filled with the smell of paint again. Daniel changed. He started closing his famous restaurant every Sunday. He said Sundays were for his family, for me. He cleared out the dusty storage room where I found the letters. He put in a large window that looked out onto our garden. He built me a small, beautiful studio, my own space, to create. I started painting again. At first, I was slow and uncertain, but soon the colors came back to me. The joy came back to me. I found the unfinished painting from 10 years ago. It was a picture of a field of sunflowers. I finally finished it. That painting now hangs above our fireplace. It fills the room with warmth and light. Our life is not the same as it was. It is better. It is more honest. Daniel visits me in my new studio every day. He doesn't just bring me coffee. He sits and watches me paint. He looks at my art with the same love in his eyes that I remember from our small apartment. When he looks at me now, he doesn't just see a wife. He sees an artist again. He sees me. Through this journey, I learned a very important lesson. I learned that a dream is not a thing you can put in a box and hide away. It is a living part of you. It needs air to breathe. It needs light to grow. And I know now, more than ever, it is never too late to find the key, unlock the door, and let your own dream live again. We often see these stories as just tales, but they are mirrors reflecting our own lives in the modern world. How many of us have put a dream on a shelf for someone else? How many promises, made with love, get lost in the noise of daily life and ambition? Clara's story teaches a powerful lesson about communication in relationships. Daniel's mistake wasn't malice, it was neglect. He stopped seeing Clara as a partner with her own dreams and saw her only as a supporter of his. This is a subtle trap many couples fall into. The unfinished painting in our own lives could be a degree we never finished, a business idea we never started, or a passion we stopped making time for. It represents the part of ourselves we sacrifice, hoping it will be valued later. The second lesson is about self-advocacy. Clara's silence enabled the problem to grow. Waiting for someone else to remember your dream is a gamble. You must be its guardian. So, take a moment today. Ask yourself, what is my unfinished painting? Don't wait for permission to pick up the brush. Have that difficult conversation. Your dreams are not a burden. They are a vital part of who you are. Have you ever had to choose between your dream and a relationship? I would love to read your experiences. Please tell me your story in the comments. If this story touched your heart, please like this video and subscribe to Peak English Stories for more. Your support helps these stories come to life. Thank you for listening.